Good morning and God bless. Welcome to the Front Page Saturday Town Hall Edition. I'm your host, Dominique DiPrima, and this is Happy Halloween, Happy Daylight Savings Time, and Happy Election Eve. Our topic today, scarier than Halloween. Elections have consequences, especially this one. So pleased to be joined this morning by the Secretary of State for California. He was born and raised in California, hails from Pacoima. I never knew this. Going deep in the bio, went to MIT and studied engineering before becoming a public servant. Of course, he was on the city council at the young age of 26, went on to serve in the state senate, and now he is the Secretary of State, which is certainly a key position in a very unusual election. Good morning, Secretary of State Alex Padilla.
Good morning, Dominique. Good to be with you again. And you got it right. I've been in public service for many years. So I've seen elections as an office holder, as a candidate, and even before that, as an organizer, trying to get more of our friends and neighbors registered to vote and voting. And now I get to do it for the whole state of California.
Right, and there's a million things I love to ask you about in that resume. But of course, the most urgent is what's happening Tuesday and really what's happening right now, because early voting has been started. And how are we doing? Do we have any indication? And just in terms of, our turnout, our glitches or no glitches with the early voting heading towards Tuesday?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's been a good story to tell, and I'll share some numbers with you. The technical voter registration deadline was a little bit more than a week and a half ago, and at that point, we reached 22 million registered voters in California. I mean, that's just up by almost 4 million from just a few years ago. So if that's any indicator, we can say our democracy is strong, right? Early voting, not just in-person early voting, but a lot of people voting by mail, because every voter has received a vote-by-mail ballot. I don't have the numbers as of last night, but it's safe to say more than 10 million people have voted already. 10 million. That's huge. That's more than double what it was just 4 years ago. But if we do some math, right, that means that there's another 10 million people that haven't done it yet. And, of course, there's a few days left. So the thing I would emphasize today is Tuesday is officially Election Day, but we just got to start thinking about it as the last day to vote. You don't have to wait till Tuesday, and actually I suggest that you don't wait till Tuesday, because we do expect lines with such a big turnout, a lot of folks registered, a lot of enthusiasm out there. There's going to be lines on Tuesday. So the best way to avoid the line, mail your ballot back in, or go in person, but do it today or tomorrow if you can. Plenty of places around the Southland to do it, including some high-profile locations like the Staples Center where I was a couple of days ago, SoFi Stadium, the Forum in Inglewood, Dodger Stadium where I was just yesterday with the governor. A lot of neat places to be able to do your civic duty and cast your ballot.
I love that you can fill out the vote-by-mail ballot and then drop it off yourself, too, because we've had all these crazy stories, about fake ballot boxes and, people losing or stealing mail. So you can just walk it right in. I love that.
The choice is yours as a voter, and you do have multiple options. Again, every voter should have received their ballot in the mail. If you want to mail it back, you don't even have to worry about stamps. Just make sure that it's postmarked on or before Election Day. It can arrive a few days after, and it will still count. And so that's one way to do it. Another way is dropping it off at an official ballot drop box. And you can find those locations, by the way, on our website at vote.ca.gov. We have a link to all the ballot box locations and early voting locations in the county. Or, as you said, you can just walk it in, drop it off in person. When you get your ballot in the mail, by the way, it comes with an I voted sticker, so you don't have to worry about missing out on the I voted sticker. But I will tell you, it's kind of cool, some of these custom I voted stickers that I've been seeing and starting to collect. The Dodgers have a custom one for voting at Dodger Stadium. Staples Center gives you the option. Do you want an LA Kings or an LA Lakers, world champion LA Lakers I voted sticker. So another neat indicator that this is really an unprecedented election.
It is. And, when we say elections have consequences, I think a lot of people think top of the ticket. They think presidential. But here in California, there's so much more to it than that, right?
Oh, it's huge. I know it sounds a little corny when we say every election's important. Every election really is. Some feel like the stakes are much higher than others, like this one in 2020, because of the top of the ticket. But if we stop and think about the issues that affect us and the issues that we care about, right? Let's just take a couple of examples. You care about the quality of schools that we're sending our kids to? Well, then the school board election better matters to us a whole heck of a lot. I mean, the President of the United States can have a little bit of influence, but it's the school board members that are making some key decisions for our neighborhood schools. And that may or may not be on the presidential election ballot. You care about, access to county clinics and health care. Well, then do you know who your supervisor is, right? So that's a different type of election than the presidential contest. And look, we know that in 2020, criminal justice and criminal justice reform has been on the top of mind for many of us. And so, the next time the sheriff's election comes around, are we paying attention? I know in this election, there's a district attorney's race that's hotly contested. So every election matters, and every race that's on the ballot matters, not just the top of the ticket.
And that, sometimes I think we lose sight of that. And in this past year or the couple of years, your position as Secretary of State has even come into the spotlight because of the rules and regulations. We saw what happened in Georgia, where we had a guy who was Secretary of State, which is over the elections, running for governor against a person, that obviously wasn't Secretary of State. To me, that should not even be allowed. But it showed us, the importance of your role and the importance of the rules, the different voting rules from state to state.
Exactly. And so in the U.S. Constitution, it does delegate the authority to states to oversee their own elections. So we don't have one centralized, standardized federal way of doing the elections. And so state by state, there's different opportunities. In some places, it's easy to vote by mail. In some places, it's very limited. Some states have early in-person voting. Some states don't. In some states, it's a little bit harder to stay on the rolls as a voter versus not. So I'm glad and I'm proud, frankly, that California leads the pack. We lead the nation both on accessibility. We make it easy to register, stay registered, and cast your ballot with all these different options, as well as being the leader in terms of election security. There's no state in the nation that has more secure elections infrastructure to guard against, the hacking and cyber threats that we hear about from time to time than the state of California. But ultimately, it only matters when people participate. And so that's why I'm so excited to see the numbers that I've seen, both on the registration side and the early vote side. But we still got a long ways to go. These next 2 days, I'm sure, are going to be a political roller coaster as we hear candidates campaigning throughout the state, throughout the country. So just one more plea, folks. If you haven't voted yet, please do it early. Go today if you can. Go tomorrow, and just not risk having to wait in a long line on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a great point. The first time ever I did that was the last at the primary, and I was so happy. I walked in and walked out. It took me just a couple minutes to get the whole thing done. But I think there's, you talk about how state by state we have different rules, and of course we saw, but we're seeing the federal impact, right? Because not only did we see the census canceled early, the counting, but we also have seen the president saying, voting by mail is bad. Don't do that. There's going to be, and all the things that he's saying, which, I think are making people feel like maybe, our vote doesn't matter. Maybe it's too late for them, all kinds of things. And I think for me, I'd love it if you could specify how, how things here in California are different based on, the conversation that we're having in the national media that to me is a bit of a deterrent for some people to even voting.
Right. And that word you use, deterrent. Let's stop and think about what that means. being deterred to vote. Some people are discouraging people to vote, whether it's, very bluntly and blatantly, or just getting in your head that maybe your vote doesn't matter or your vote's not important. That falls into the category of what we call voter suppression. When we discuss voter suppression, whether it's been in history class or just amongst family and friends, sometimes we think about, the Jim Crow South that was decades ago, poll taxes and literacy tests to be able to vote that, had the effect of disenfranchising, black voters once upon a time. Voter suppression still exists in America. It's just taken on a different form. Sometimes it's through official policies like felony disenfranchisement. And that's on the ballot here in California, by the way. So please read up on Proposition 17 and decide how you're going to vote, but make sure you vote. Or it can be in the form of, okay, we're going to have a lot fewer voting locations and a lot fewer voting machines with no vote by mail option to force people to wait in lines in certain communities. But sometimes it's not, the policy or the infrastructure of elections that serves to suppress the vote. Sometimes it's the psyche, the mentality that when the president of the United States is telling you can't trust the election system, there's no truth to it, number one. He's got an agenda, and he's made it, pretty publicly known. He thinks that more people voting is bad for his politics. And so that's why he's putting it out there. 2020 has been a tough year. Among the milestones this year that still hurts in my heart is we lost a legend in Congressman John Lewis. And
yes,
he
indeed.
would speak so eloquently about, if our right to vote wasn't so powerful, why are folks working so hard to try to take it away? Right? Folks that are making it harder for us to vote is because they know that vote is powerful. And so let's not take it for granted. Our power, our right to vote, in many ways, is like a muscle. It gets stronger the more that we use it. And so, don't lose sight of the power of your right to vote, the power to organize your friends and family to make sure every eligible person votes, and the importance of every single election. That's why in California, again, we're driven by the philosophy of we got to facilitate participation. Yes, we're going to keep our elections secure, but we should be making it easier for eligible people to register. And you can do it online. Look, if you miss the registration deadline, you can even show up in person at any vote center and register and still cast your ballot this election. You just got to do it in person. And you can vote so many ways. In person on Election Day, do it in advance of Election Day, do it by mail, but just make sure you do it. The stakes are critical.
Yeah, it's a good point. And things like, for example, in some states, they are fighting over whether to count ballots that come after Election Day, even if they were postmarked on Election Day or before. If they didn't arrive on time, some states won't count them. But so we hear these things in California, like, oh no, my vote, if I put in the mail today, it won't count. But we don't have those rules, and that's part of what I mean when I say elections have consequences, because our rules here in California about when, where, and how you can register and vote are based on our choices in prior elections.
Exactly, and it's another example of how it can get confusing and maybe overwhelming if you try to keep up with the news. Each state has different rules, and on top of that, there's been tons of lawsuits challenging those rules, from one party versus another. One party trying to make it harder for ballots to be counted after Election Day, when I know pro-voting rights folks want to make it as inclusive as possible. In California, we shifted years ago from the ballot has to be at the county by the time the polls close on election night to this policy of, look, as long as it's postmarked on or before Election Day, that vote should count. The vote was sent at the right time. It's not the voter's fault if the post office takes a little bit longer to get the ballot to the county. The voter should not lose their voting rights because of the post office. So we started by allowing the ballots to arrive up to 3 days after the election and still be counted. We've extended that deadline for this November to 17 days after the election. As long as it was mailed off on time, it will still count. Sooner is better. I'm telling people, the sooner you send it in, the sooner it's going to be counted also. But that's not the case in other states. It's all over the map. Some states, it's still got to be there by Election Day. In some states, it's 3 days after or 14 days after. But in California, it's 17. And Dominic, just slightly on a different topic, just to another example of the lengths that we go to in California for people to feel confident about voting. Have you signed up for ballot tracks? I know you voted already, but I don't know if you signed up for Where's My Ballot.
No, I haven't, but we've been getting rave reviews about it.
Excellent. So it's still not too late.
So explain how that works.
If you go to vote.ca.gov, right, go past the register to vote button. There's a big button that says, Where's My Ballot? Click on that, input some basic information, and you will get automatic notifications. And you choose by email, by text message, by phone call, or all of the above on the status of your ballot through the delivery process. So if you signed up earlier, you got the notice when the county mailed you your ballot. If you're mailing your ballot back, it'll tell you when the post office has picked it up from the mailbox. You even get confirmation when the county receives your ballot, and you'll get confirmation when the county counts your ballot. So regardless of how you return it, you get that confirmation. And so if you're ever wondering, well, I assume my ballot got there, I assume it got counted, but how do I really know? Well, now you'll actually know for sure in real time. So, again, it just underscores the reliability, I think, of the Postal Service if you mail it back, the Dropbox option, if that's your choice, or when you hand it in person. I mean, you handed it in, but you can celebrate the day you know that it got counted.
Absolutely. We have a question from Fran calling us from Ladera. Good morning, Fran.
Good morning to both of you, and thank you both for your outstanding service to our communities. My question is, yesterday there was quite a bit of information on several of the news channels regarding these groups, these white nationalist groups that are practicing and actually doing military maneuvers to come out. And one of the leaders said that Trump had given them the orders when he told them to stand down and stand back.
Got it, Fran.
So I'm wondering if California has any fear of these groups coming out. They're saying that there's going to be a civil war among them. So,
okay, let's allow the Secretary of State to respond. Not only is Fran hearing on the national media about MAGA supporters threatening to come out with guns, we've had a call on this radio station yesterday morning of a guy who went to vote in Beverly Hills, and black people, group of them, and there are MAGA supporters on the corner across from the polls, giving them dirty looks and chanting and things like that. Is that even legal?
Yeah, and that's a real concern for a lot of people. Every election, we put it into the plans and preparations. What if there's some sort of disruption at a polling place? How do we respond? So we do have the plans and protocols in place, but here's what folks need to know. In California, unlike a lot of other states, it's very clear in state law. We have a voters' bill of rights, which includes easy registration, options for voting. If election night comes and you're in line at 8 o'clock, that poll has to stay open to make sure you can vote as long as you're in line by 8 o'clock. It also includes, you have the right as a voter to be able to vote free of any harassment or intimidation or threats of any kind. If you experience anything, if you observe anything, please give us a call. We have a voter hotline set up. It's operating now, and it will operate through Election Day. 1-800-345-VOTE. 1-800-345-VOTE. By the same token, we do allow for election observation, but it's just that, election observation. Anything that crosses the line into harassment or intimidation or things like that are strictly forbidden by law. Anything that even interferes with the administration of elections is prohibited by law, and we protect the voting space. So no electioneering or that type of activity within 100 feet of a polling location. If folks are across the street, whooping and hollering, regardless of their politics, there has to be at a distance. You can't interfere with the voting space and that voting environment itself. Again, if you experience something or observe something, let us know at 1-800-345-VOTE. So that's the voting part itself, Dominique. I mean, what I'm also hearing is what's going to happen potentially on election night or the days after the election,
right.
depending on the outcome. right? And that's not something for poll workers or elections folks to be in charge of. That's the greater community, including our city and county officials. How to maintain decorum. I know how I personally want the election to go at the top of the ticket, but with all the important races up and down the ticket, once the outcome is clear, that's the way our democracy works. So let's maximize the chances of your interest prevailing by participating, right? And the other possible scenario is, what if the race is too close to call? We're hearing about these battleground states, not California so much, but Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. These are all states that are just now growing vote by mail for the first time. So if the race is that close, kind of like it was in Florida back in 2000, we may not know who the president of the United States is going to be for the next 4 years, for at least a few days after the election. If that happens, that's not the time to panic. It's the time to be patient, know that they're still counting ballots. Be wary of any candidates claiming victory when there's still a lot of ballots to be counted, not just in the presidential contest, that's in any contest. But if it takes us a few more days to finalize the results this year, that's going to be okay. We'll do it in plenty of time before the Electoral College piece in December, before Congress reconvenes in January. Our democracy is being tested right now, but our people are resilient.
Okay, really quickly, Margaret from Inglewood.
Hi, this is Margaret Evans. I put my ballot in one of the drop boxes on the 21st of October, and I was just wondering how often they collect the ballots, because I'm quite concerned. I've been trying to track it, and it has not shown up anywhere. I've called, okay. I've done everything. How often do they pick the
Got it. Got the question. How often? Well, that would be a county function, but she dropped her ballot off in one of the county boxes and hasn't heard anything. It sounds like she signed up for a ballot tracking. Should she be concerned? Secretary Padilla? Okay, I'm not sure if we have lost Secretary of State Alex Padilla.
Sorry about that. Hello, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so she hasn't heard anything back after dropping her ballot in the box, and I think she signed up for tracking. Should she be concerned?
I don't think she should be concerned. At this stage, they are retrieving ballots every 24 hours from those ballot drop boxes. But if you think of the logistics, they're getting picked up, they're being brought to the 100,000, a day. So it takes a minute for them to manually go through, scan that they have received it, and for the notification to go out. If it's any consolation, I dropped my ballot off on Tuesday, and I got my notification, I think it was Thursday evening. So it took about 48, it took at least 2 days, maybe 2.5 days for the alert to come up in my phone. So if you really are concerned, you can always contact the county. In LA, it's lavote.net. That's their website. Or you can go to vote.ca.gov and get the whole directory of county elections offices for all counties in California. So not so much time to worry. Give another day or so. If come election day you still haven't received that notification, you have the option of voting in person just as a backup, but they'll only count one ballot, the first one that arrives. But I think if you've already delivered it to a drop box, I think you're going to be okay.
But if we can't find the vote by mail ballot, or there's some other kind of issue, and we go ahead and vote in person, we don't have to bring that vote by mail with us or prove that we haven't voted with that one, right? We can just go ahead and vote, and then they'll only count one.
That's correct. I mean, for peace of mind, it's helpful if you bring it with you. But if you don't, that's okay. That we have the technology to cancel that original ballot, if you will. So even if you or somebody else tries to turn it in later, it won't be counted because you as a voter would already be marked as having voted in person. And look, that's a real need for some people. If I lose it, or if I made a mistake and I just need a fresh ballot to fill out, we have the ability to do that at the in-person voting locations.
Okay, we're behind schedule, but it's, Election Day Eve, and people have a lot of questions. So I'm so pleased that you could be with us today. So I want to go really quickly to Kevin from Los Angeles.
Hi, Dominique and Secretary of State. I have a quick question. My question is that how do you count the ballots so fast, as well as how does the news media outlets call the elections if the ballots aren't counted, and if they have made a mistake in calling the election?
Got it, Kevin.
How's that correct?
Yeah, we're tight on time, so I get the gist of your question. How do they track the ballots so fast? How do they count the ballots so fast? News agencies aren't supposed to call races until the polls close, but they often do call them before the votes are counted.
Right, and I think what they do in a lot of cases is they see how the vote is going. Right, if there's a candidate that is leading by a lot, even if only half the ballots are going to be counted, it's mathematically hard for that race to flip in the other direction. So they tend to only call races where it's pretty clear mathematically who's going to win, even though the final numbers aren't going to be clear for a couple of weeks. In the close contest, they continue to say it's too close to call, too close to call. The one thing that's helping this year is we're letting the counties start the ballot processing earlier. So they've already been doing the signature verification for vote by mail, opening the envelopes, sorting the ballots, getting them ready to run through the machines. So the first time you hear numbers on election night at about 8:15, 8:30, you hear a lot more than we have in the past. So a lot at stake this election. Make sure your voice is heard. Make sure you cast your ballot, and make sure you do it early if you want to avoid those lines on Tuesday.
One more question. Where are we with the fake ballot box case? I know the Republicans said we're going to keep doing it anyway. You guys told them to stop. Where are we with it now?
So the investigation continues. The lawsuits are still in process in court. But the good news is it appears that the unauthorized, unofficial drop boxes have been removed. If you see them pop back up, please let us know at 1-800-345-VOTE. It looks like they've been taken away. And again, reminding everybody of the multiple options for returning their ballot by mail to an unofficial drop box or at any in-person voting location all the way through Election Day.
Secretary of State Alex Padilla, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Dominique. Have a blessed day.
Indeed, we shall. And be safe. It's Halloween out there. Listen, family, it is the Front Page Saturday Town Hall Edition. Elections have consequences. We are broadcasting live from the 1-800-THE-LAW 2 studio, Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.